arguably one of the best rappers of our time at the moment. Pusha T is back with a new album, It's Almost Dry. And while he has been considered a great rapper even as far as the 2000s with his fantastic and even at times maybe somewhat overlooked work with clips. I mean, in a more modern context, younger people these days aren't really talking about clips as much as they should be, but even back then people knew how good he was, especially if you were aware of clips. But I think there's been a bit of a reignited love and respect for Pusha T really since Daytona. Again, the respect has always been there for Pusha, but I think the attitude towards him really shifted when he dropped that 7-track album. That was pretty much a no filler, all killer kind of thing. And really since then, I've seen way more positivity about him. Of course, there was that Drake beef as well, which he easily won. There's no denying that he won it. Yes, Drake might be the more popular artist. He's always going to be one of the biggest artists around. We know that. But doesn't mean he automatically wins a beef. He didn't win that beef. It's so obvious that Pusha did. And now I just see more respect for Pusha on social medias and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see, because like I say, I think his best work has always been with clips and always will be with clips, to be honest. But the more people that are aware of how fantastic he is, because his solo work has been really good as well, particularly in Numbers on the Boards, which honestly is one of the best rap songs of all time, in my opinion. Yeah, any respect he gets, I'm here for, because he's fantastic. Now, It's Almost Dry is a nice follow-up to Daytona. I don't think it's as good, and I don't think many people out there will be claiming it's as good either. But it's solid. It's solid. I think the opening track really sets the tone. He's coming through really confidently, really harshly and brutal with his lyrics. He's obviously got a bit of a beef here. Reading up on it, it is a beef with his former manager, who went on to do an interview and spoke about clips, and I don't really know the exact ins and outs of what was said because I haven't seen the interview, but basically Pusha T has some things to say. This is where Pusha T, I think, is pretty much at his known best. Everyone knows Pusha T as being quite cutthroat, quite brutal with his lyrics. Again, the Drake beef tells you exactly all you need to know with that. Pharrell's got the beat as well as the second track as well. Two good beats, really. It's more bobbly on the second track, a bit more of a disjointed, like boom, boom, boom. It still sounds pretty good. Very old school Pharrell sounding. And it's at this point you still start to remember that Pusha T will always be delivering some cocaine raps on all of his albums. Till the end of time and since the dawn of time, because he says cocaine's Dr. Seuss on this one, and there are a few other lines as well that pop up. Lines wasn't even an intentional pun, but a few other lines pop up here and there on this track and across the album, where he's just kind of trying to remind you that he is like the drug lord of rap music. Personally, I said this on Daytona when that came out, I think I am getting a little bored of that. When we talk about rappers and critique them for maybe only having one topic, it's always valid and discussed. You know, some rappers just rap about the same things and we want a bit more diversity and versatility. Pusha T is one of those for me. I don't know why he's not brought up in the conversation as much as some other names out there, because like this album, he is still really touching on topics we've heard him touch on since like 2002. Dreaming of the past, you know, talking about the money he has and talking about the haters that critique him and how he's always where the money's at. Just like lottery signs. Kanye West is on this track as well. He takes the beat, a very classic Kanye beat, I must say. Push even references the sampling of Kanye on the track itself, which I find quite funny. Kind of like breaking the fourth wall in a self-aware way. I quite like that because obviously Kanye's sampling is very particular and always very soulful. This track is exactly that. Although I will say when he actually comes in for his verse though, it makes the track feel a bit disjointed. Like the recording of his voice just sounds like he did it in a different place, in a different time, in a different era. I don't know. He just sounds like he's done his verse and he's just slapped it on, but it doesn't actually fit the song very well. Diet Coke is another track that has that kind of old school energy to it. In fact, when you look at when this beat was actually made, he hadn't used it for years, and it's like from the early 2000s. And to be honest, that is exactly how it sounds. But it sounds really good and really gritty, and it's got that kind of edge to it that just makes Pusha sound so good over the beat. Like, it fits his voice so well. He sounds so cool, he sounds so calm, and he just oozes this charisma over this track. You ordered Diet Coke, that's a joke, right? Kind of reminds me of those people that only really truly believe in the full fat sugar Coke. Any other kind of Coke is not worthy. As I was saying with the awkward feature of Kanye, we do have that same thing happening again on Rock and Roll, where you've got Kid Cudi on the track this time, and his voice is so muffled, and the chorus that he puts in doesn't fit the beat at all. I'm trying not to be a Kid Cudi hater, because every time I talk about him on this channel, I seem to say something negative. But I don't hate him, I promise you. But sorry, he doesn't fit this track at all. He doesn't fit the beat. The voice doesn't sound right. There's just something wrong here. And I guess while we're on the negatives, there are a few other tracks as well. Call My Bluff, Pusha's delivery isn't that great on this one. He doesn't really carry much energy on this track. I don't really like the beat either. And I don't know, it just doesn't work. Just So You Remember as well has a really hollow beat, which I guess is trying to match the menace and the intensity of Push on this track, because he sounds so like bloodthirsty on this song, and he sounds insane, to be honest. But the beat itself, I just thought could have had a bit more of an impact. It reminded me of Infrared from Daytona, where it was very like hollow and very, you know, kind of ominous and strange. But again, even with that menace, he's still dropping lines like Book of Blow, Just Know I'm the Genesis. Again, just kind of dropping lines that I feel like are variations of things he's said 100 times before. Now, the surprise track for me though, and I know for a fact people will not agree with this, but I am here to say, and I am here to tell you honestly and truthfully, my favourite track on this album is Scrape It Off. And if you told me before this album that a feature from Lil Uzi Vert and Don Toliver would be the best track on a Pusha T album, I'd have laughed in your face, because I'd have thought, no way, no way. Because for one, I'm not a fan of either, really. I'm not an Uzi fan, and I'm not really that much of a Don Toliver fan either. And two, I wouldn't think this collaboration would make sense, but it actually really does. It's totally different for Pusha T, and it kind of reminds you that he actually could deliver something we may have never heard before in a full album context if he went with something like this. Because for me, I think it works, and it sounds way different to anything he's really ever done. Uzi sounds really great on his feature as well. I think Don Toliver's hook goes crazy, man. It is an absolutely fantastic hook, and it reminds me of his feature on Masego's Mystery Lady, which is a fantastic track, and if you've never heard of that song, check it out. Mystery Lady by Masego, really good. Yeah, I just think the beat's really good too. Of course, I would say that Pusha T feels a bit overshadowed because they both take the first chunk of the song before Pusha T even comes in. But overall, it comes together really well, and it just is such a big surprise. One of the biggest surprises of the year so far for me, because I just wouldn't think a song like this would work. And to be honest, I'm kind of assuming and expecting everyone else to say that they don't think it works either, but I think it does. I think it's really good. You've got then Hear Me Clearly, which I think interpolates Jesus Walks by Kanye West. It's got a really hard knocking beat, this track. And then of course you've got the final track, which again reminds me of some Kanye West too, where the opening moments and like the first subsection of the song reminds me of something that would be on Donda. It's got that really gospel feel to it. You've got Labyrinth coming through with some vocals too, and then that kind of like gospel energy permeates through the rest of the track while Pusha is rapping. It's a pretty cool track actually. It just surprisingly reminds me of Donda somehow. Of course there's a Jay feature early on in the album too, which I think is pretty good. Overall, I think this is a solid album. There's not a huge amount of progression from what we've heard Pusha T do before. A lot of the beats are pretty similar to what we've heard him do before. Even the guest features are very much similar to what we've heard him do before, aside from Scrape It Off, the one track that I think is different for Pusha T. But even still, he doesn't have to change everything to make a good album. He's doing what works for him, and it is a good album. It's pretty good. I just don't think it's quite on the level of maybe Daytona, or certainly not anything really he's put out in the Clips era. I think that really eclipses anything he's done in a solo capacity anyway. But it doesn't mean to say that his solo stuff is bad. His solo stuff has been really quite good. I just don't think this album is anything more than that, really. I think there's probably something he needs to change up lyrically in places. Maybe be a bit more daring. Maybe try doing more songs like Scrape It Off and see how it works. I think he just kind of needs to enter a new level, kind of push things beyond what we've heard him do before, because this does feel quite familiar for him. It's a good album though. It is good. I'm going to go 6 out of 10. I think a 6 is always solid in my eyes. So if you're mad at that score, remember it's above a 5 and it's above halfway. Basically 6 means good. It's good. So thank you as always for watching. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon as well. That would be fantastic. There is a Discord server now, and you can join that if you subscribe to me on Patreon just for $1 or £1 a month. And you can talk about music all day with me and a bunch of other people as well. So thank you as always. Do subscribe to this channel as well if you haven't already, and goodbye.